Okay, so it looks like we are live. So I'm going to start. I'm Jane Roush, as you can see in the bottom, District Governor of 6540 this year. And I want to welcome all of you to our District Grants Seminar. There are very few things that are more exciting in our district than the projects that we see through our district grants and our global grants. We are very fortunate in this district to have Sharon Kish, who has stepped into the role of District Grants Chair this year after the untimely death of Mike Crable. Sharon has jumped in with both feet, completing grants and payments from last year's grant process, and then working with our clubs and Rotary International on this year's grants. And she has developed, along with Chris Widener, our district secretary, a new and more efficient application for this coming year's district grants. Sharon, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart with all that you've done to get this, to keep this rolling and keep us moving forward in the way that you have. And so now I would like to introduce Tim Gibson, who is our district governor-elect, and he will actually join Sharon as the go-to person on district grants during the 2022-2023 Rotary year. Tim?
Thank you, Jane. I just wanted to make one brief statement. Sharon is very aware of using our available technology at the district level to make it easier for your clubs to complete projects with financing from the Rotary Foundation. So Sharon, please share your presentation. We are looking forward to it tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, District Governor Jane and District Governor-elect Tim. It's an exciting time, and I want to say welcome to everybody on this call and Happy New Year. It is the beginning of a new grant cycle, and so we do have some new things to share tonight. And there's some things we're just going to reiterate what's been done in the past. So there are a number of slides that we'll get through, but we want to leave time for questions and answers at the end. And then also you can put any questions you have in the chat room, and we will then be addressing those also. So let's get started. These slides and this program will be available online after tomorrow morning's program, and so that you can refer back, or if you have somebody else in your club who is your grant chair, you can have them refer to the PowerPoint and also the presentation. Again, there are, as Tim said, there are a few changes to this year. Most of it's in the application, but a lot of the information that you will be putting in the new application, which we'll get to later on, is information that you've done in the past. So what is a Rotary Foundation grant? And there's really two kinds of grants. One is the global grants, which are the bigger international projects that are done between two or more clubs, not only in the United States, but around the world. And that minimum budget is $30,000. And there will be an RI Foundation staff member who will supervise those grants. And that people who apply for a global grant, there are resources at RI that you would go online and go through that will guide you through that process. The district grants, which is what we're talking about tonight, are intended to support your projects in your local communities. They're smaller size. The maximum amount of a district grant is still $3,000. And your club will be the one that will supervise those projects. I just put this up. This is the graphic that the RI Foundation put out last year. And this is the amount of money that was given at that time in the 6 areas of focus. They're adding the environmental one this year, but last year, $106 million were given to grants around the world by RI from monies that all Rotarians donate. So what are district grants? Let's talk about that. District grants are Rotary Foundation funds. They don't come from the dues that your club pays, but they come from donations to the annual fund share. And each district sets its own rules for participation, but we still have to follow the RI guidelines. Projects are smaller and are completed within a shorter time frame. We have 12 months, but most of the projects are done much sooner than June 30th of 2023. And we hope that you will involve your members in the participation in those projects. We all give money, we raise money, we give money, but when Rotarians are actually the boots on the ground and are participating, then they see where their donations and those foundation dollars go. And it can be done, you can do your district grant with another club, and we'll talk about that in a little while, but it can be more than one club can join together for a district grant. And in addition to the grants that go to all of you in the clubs, the district grants support Interact, Rotaract, Early Act. There are also some new opportunities for Rotaract clubs. In 2023, the RI Foundation is going to allow Rotaracts to apply for global grants, but there are some new guidelines. So if your club supports a Rotaract club and you are interested, give me a call or text me and we can kind of go through that. There's only a one-page flyer right now, exactly what RI has in mind, but I'll be happy to share with you what I've received. We also support Rotary Youth Exchange out of the grant funds and also Summer Scholar. And we have one scholarship that will be awarded this summer for a Summer Scholar, which is the first time in a couple of years. And where do those monies come from? Well, it is a partial return of contributions to the annual fund share that were made 3 years ago. RI invests them and holds them for 3 years, and then they return them to the district. So 50% comes back to District 6540, and then 50% of that amount is eligible to fund district grants. Go on a little bit slow. The other 50% is available to support the global grant of our district governor and of our clubs, and also Polio Plus. And in any average year, we'll have about $75,000 available for district grant supported fund activities. So here is the cycle. And I know that may be a little hard to read, but right now we're in the application window, January 1st through March 31st. And then in April, the grants committee will review the grants. They may call back, they may get back in touch with you if they need more information, but they will then make a recommendation, and preliminary approval is done in May. Then all that information has to be sent to RI, which again reviews the grants and then approves the dollar amount. So the final approval will come in June, and then the projects will start, and they can be done from July 1st, 2022 to May 30, or I'm sorry, that we're in the project evaluation execution. That number is wrong. It's July 1st through June 30th of 2023. But the final report, we hope that your project is done before that date, and that the final report will be submitted during the month of June of 2023. And after that, payment will come to the club upon approval of the final report. Lost my clicker. There we go. All right. I've lost. Chris, can you advance in a minute? The connection was lost. Here. Okay. Thank you. All right. This year, the project must fall under one of the foundation's 7 areas of focus. So as I said earlier, they've added the environmental this year, so they are also looking for grants in that area. The committee will review, will ask for questions, may ask for revisions of your proposal, but know that historically, we have always had more requests than there are dollars available. So we may have to reduce some of the grants to match what the actual dollars that we have. And that clubs that give more generously to the foundation have a better chance of full funding. All right. I don't know why it's not advancing. Chris, are you? Okay. It looks like I'm on, but it's not. I'm sorry, everybody. We'll get this right yet. All right. So there are some activities you can do, and there are many activities. Our clubs have been so creative about what they can do with really a small amount of money. But these are some of the things you can do. You can conduct educational seminars. You can repair existing buildings. You can do new constructions in parks or public areas. You can purchase equipment for organizations. You can do a food backpack program. You can do scholarships, but you cannot do any payments to individuals. They have to be given to a educational institution. You can do town welcome signs. And you can do international projects, smaller ones. I know the Valpo Club has funded some Engineers Without Borders, working with Valparaiso University. The Portage Club funded a water project in Mexico. So there are smaller grants that you can do to fund international projects. There are also prohibited activities, and there is a whole list. You cannot purchase land or buildings. I don't know, there's not a lot of buildings you can buy for $3,000, but it's not allowable. You cannot do fundraising activities. So you cannot hold a fundraiser and then use the money for the grant. You have to use your own money. You can't use the district money. You cannot do expenses that are related to Rotary activities, paying people to go to conferences or anniversary celebrations. You can't have a party with the district grant funds. You cannot make unrestricted cash donations to agencies. It has to be for a particular project. You cannot get reimbursed for an expense that's already been paid out unless it's part of the approved grant. Rotary signage is not allowable over $500, but you can use up to $500 as part of the grant. And this is the one that's always tricky. You cannot do construction where money can be made. So you can do a municipal project, you can do playgrounds, you can do equipment, you can do gardens, you can do a lot of different things, but you cannot build a concession stand in a ballpark. So if money is going to be made from that grant, it would not be allowable under RI rules. And you cannot, as a club, own the equipment. It has to go to another organization. So I've just put two pictures on the next slide. This information has all been downloaded into the website. These are do's and don'ts, and it goes through a lot of the things you can do and that you can't do. And then there's an 8-page paper that RI has that is their terms and condition. And so if I would encourage anybody who is writing the grant to read those before you start, especially if you have a new grant chair. And unfortunately, there will be some clubs who are not going to be eligible to apply for a grant. If clubs are not current with RI or district dues, they are ineligible. And because these funds come directly from the Rotary Foundation, foundation giving plays a big role in the decision-making part of the grant committee. So all the clubs are given their average of what they've given in the last, especially the past year, the last 3 years. And a club has to have a 3-year average giving $50 or more. If it's under $50 per capita, they will not be eligible to receive a district grant. To get the $3,000, the per capita giving has to be $100, every Rotarian every year amount. And then between 50 and 100, it's the percentage. So if it's $80, you would get 80% of the grant. Any club that's been formed in the last 5 years is exempt from that 3-year giving. And we have several new clubs that have started over the last 3 years. And so they will be given 5 years to get up and running, to get their club involved, to build capacity. You can coordinate with other clubs. If you have a big project that your club cannot do on its own. So you can submit grants for the same project, but it takes extra planning, and it takes planning for your financing. So if you're doing a park project, let's say you're building, putting things in a park. So one club may do the benches, and another one may do playground equipment, and another one may do picnic tables. So you can't submit invoices for the same thing. And we've had a number of successful projects. Last year, there was Habitat for Humanity playground that was built by 4 clubs. And that was a huge project. There was a handicap accessible playground. There were another 2 clubs that bought playground equipment for their community. And that Zambia water truck is an older grant, but there were 4 clubs involved in that, and they each submitted money. So you are now ready to plan your project. You get 2 club members committed to your project. On the application, it asks for the names, email addresses, and telephone numbers of 2 club members who will oversee the project. And we asked for 2 because sometimes club members leave or something happens that they can't continue. So we need at least the names of 2 club members. This is the time now to plan the scope of your activities. It is time to get, it's not working real good here, to get Rotarians actively involved, get them excited about the grant, get cost and time estimates, coordinate. If your club is a municipal project, you coordinate with them very closely. We had one club this past year that could not complete their grant because the municipality they were working with decided to wait a year and put it out. They weren't going to do it till sometime in 22. So it's very important to coordinate with them. And that particular club, we advise them that they wait until this year and resubmit their grant. You coordinate with other clubs, you make a plan for publicity because we want people to know what your Rotary Club is doing, and have contingency plans if, as the district, we cannot fund your entire request. So we're now getting to the application part. It's a new application. It is an e-application. The information is the same, but the format is going to look different when you go in. So there'll be, you will have your name and your email address, and we want your club name and your club mailing address, because a lot of clubs have their own, PO boxes, or they have mailing address. We don't want the mailing address to where you have lunch, but if the club has a mailing address, please include that. We need a brief overview of your project, the description, what needs of the community will be served, which of the areas of focus does this project serve? And you will be asked to pick one. And we know that sometimes projects overlap and may meet 1 or 2 of the areas of focus, but pick the one that is the closest to your project. Because when I go in and I have to put all this stuff on RI website before they approve our grants, they ask, which area of focus does this project serve? We want your estimated project start date and estimated project completion date. And just remember, the start date cannot be before July 1st, 22, and it has to be over by June 30th, 2023. The second part of the application is that you will list any participating organizations. There'll be a place for the name of the second contact person and their email and phone number. If you purchase equipment or supplies, who owns it? You'll be asked to list that. You'll be asked for a publicity plan, very briefly, how you're going to make people know about your project. And then there it will be a place for you to authorize it, to sign it. It'll be an e-signature. And I want to point out that we didn't make a typo. 4 and 5 are the new application forms. And there will be a link on that part of the application that you will be able to download that new form. And this is on the next page, the new form. And I know that's very small and hard to see, but the top part of this new form is an Excel spreadsheet, and you will list who are your funding sources. Oh, the top part, I'm sorry. The top part is the things to be purchased. Even I can't see this. I'm going to go to the next page because it will tell us. Touch your part. No. The top part of the form, let me back up, is you'll list what is going to be purchased, the name of the supplier, and the dollar amount. On the bottom part of the form is it asks for your club, how much you're going to be contributing. And remember that your club has to contribute 25% of the project cost. It'll ask for other sources of funding, and you'll put in who they are and their dollar amount. And then how much are you requesting from the district grant? Not to exceed 3,000 and to be no more than 75% of the budget. The top part, the items to be purchased, and the bottom part have to equal. And it will not let you leave this form if they do not equal. It'll be a green, it'll show up, the total will be green before you can submit your grant. And then you will hit submit, and that will come immediately, and you'll get notification that your grant will be that your grant has been submitted, and the financial form you will email to me. At this point, the financial form still has to be sent through email, downloaded in email. And once you got your approval, you can start your project. Again, do not start before July 1st. Do not spend any money before July 1st. If any of the receipts are dated before July 1st, we cannot submit them. We cannot accept them. And invoices are not receipts, okay? Just remember that when we get an invoice, it has to show it's paid. We need copies of the checks. We need copies of the receipts. Try to run expenses through your club rather than individual members. I reviewed a grant a couple of years ago where individual club members had submitted went out and bought things on their own charge cards. And sometimes they bought other things on the receipts, not just what was for the project. It was very confusing. So the reimbursement goes to your club, and you will be responsible for reimbursing those members. Do fundraising if the grant is less than what you expected. And if the project goes over budget for whatever reason, the answer is no, there will be no more funds. What funds we have will be expended. Okay. And then what if things change? Like this particular club last year that was going to build a break wall with their municipality. So again, all projects must be completed by June 30th. The better date is May 30th, so you have time to get your final report in. If things go wrong, timeframes get changed. Key individuals on a project leave. There's still COVID issues. There were several grants last year that could not be completed because of COVID. We know there's still supply chain issues, and sometimes things aren't delivered when they're supposed to. So if you have any of those problems, contact us early. Let Tim know, let me know, and we will try to work with you to see what we can do to accommodate changes. You may need to substitute another project if it completely cannot be done in the time frame. Or we may have to cancel the grant, and unfortunately that has to happen sometimes. And that has also happened sometimes when there are grants that are outside the United States. And then in June or before, if the project's done earlier, prepare your final report. Describe what was done, what was spent. Email me copies of your receipts. If the treasurer writes a check, use the memo area to identify what was that check used for. Make sure your numbers match, and we'll be having the same kind of form where the income has to equal the expenses. You will e-sign the report and then submit your final report. Now, this is a copy of the final report. It's pretty much what I just said. You're going to say what you did, how you did it. There'll be a place for, there'll be another Excel spreadsheet as part of that. And on the final report, you will use exact numbers. So when you have receipts, the amount of expenses have to equal the budgeted amounts, the income. So you will be listing all those and you will submit that. This report probably is not online yet because you're not even starting until July 1st, but we will make sure that this report is online by July 1st. We're still working out some of Chris has been so great about preparing these new documents, but we're still working on some issues in this one. Email a few pictures, but probably no more than 2 or 3, because with all the different clubs, there are a lot of pictures. It's hard to keep track. And if you email pictures, make sure you identify your club so that I know, because as I get to know people in the clubs, I might recognize the name, but I may not. So share with us your best pictures. And then to get your grant funds, when your final report, we operate as a reimbursement. When you get your report in, we will send the check to the club mailing address or to the president or treasurer. And because Rotary only allows one district grant year to be open at a time, we can't get funds for the new year if the last year's projects are still open. And so then your problem becomes our problem. So please be timely so that we don't have to be calling you and asking where your report is. Common mistakes. I hope we, this year, that income and expenses don't match. That's going to be harder to do this year because you won't be able to submit the form, but they do have to match. We look for participation. We like to celebrate what Rotarians are doing around the district. I know Jane has been putting those pictures and put the items that you submit in the newsletter. Other mistakes are we get an incomplete set of receipts that doesn't match the expenses. And total grant funds can only supply 75% of the project cost. But you know, for your club, if you put out $25 and the district brings back funds for $75, that's a great return on your investment. And that it allows your club to do much more in the community. So please, we hope that you will participate in this process. Don't start, wait till after July 1st. We keep saying that. And you don't have to give too much detail. Be succinct, both in the application and on the final report. On the grant request, on the application, you will round the dollars off so that they're even dollars. But when you do your final reports, they have to match the receipts. So just remember, it'll be on both of those forms, but just to remind you. And this year we are accepting no handwritten applications or reports, please, please. Okay. And I just threw in this is where you find all this material. You'll find the applications, you will find the things from RI, the do's and don'ts. It's on the homepage of Rotary6540.org, but you got to drop down to the downloads. So that's the area that you got to go, especially if you got it. The first year I did it, I couldn't find it. And just keep dropping down because the up-to-date news is at the top, and this will be on the left-hand side. And so now we're ready for questions. Are there any questions in the chat? I think Chris and Jane, you were monitoring them.
I'll kind of just start it out. I know one of the I had two different questions that came up when I would go to clubs and people would ask about some of their projects for this current year or even for last year. A project can certainly be larger than $4,000. It can
Yes.
be a $10,000 or a $20,000 project, but you're only going to receive $3,000 from the district grant. But so there's a lot of different options. And that's why Sharon said too, that you could partner with another club in the area or another organization and have dollars come in that way, or do a fundraising project for it. But you will only receive $3,000 tops. Then on the other side of that coin, if you originally think your project's going to be $4,000 and you've been approved for $3,000, but the final report comes in with only $3,500 of expenses because that's all you needed to complete your project, you're only going to get 75% of that 3,500. You're not going to get the full 3,000.
Right.
And there were a couple of questions that came up with that this past year on projects. And so I just wanted to let people know on that. But otherwise, lots of great information, Sharon. We're probably all on overload at this point.
I'm sure you are. That's
although
why
I know several have already done grants in the past. I think
Yeah.
Heinz has, and probably Sue also. Any questions though for Sharon, Tim, or myself?
And you can, Chris just put up, that's my contact information. As you start writing your grant, if you have any questions, you can email me, you can call me, you can text me, and I'll try to get an answer for you as soon as possible so you can get your grant in.
And if you have a question, you can just unmute and ask it. You don't have to go and chat now or anything. So,
oh, right, yes.
Heinz, are you trying to ask a question? You're muted. The word for 2021, 2022. You're muted.
Yes.
So you said early on that the slides for the presentation are available where?
They'll be on Rotary6540.org.
Okay.
They'll be there. And also on YouTube, the presentation will be up on YouTube on Rotary 6540.
Okay. Very good. Go ahead.
The grant itself is an easy grant process. I mean, there's not a lot of fluff in there. It's really ends up to be about a 2-page grant by the time you get done with it. It just takes planning. I mean, this is a time with your clubs to be planning what you want to do and getting the information together so that whoever sits down to write the grant has that information.
Any questions, Andrew or Sue?
Well, you answered mine, I think. So like I have a grant going this year. And I think from our original estimate, a lot of it's going to be donated. So it would still be a completed grant. It just, we wouldn't necessarily get funds back because everything's donated. So I think so it's not that it's not an incomplete grant. It just, good job. You got community support. Is that a correct understanding?
Your club has to put in at least 25% of the ask of the district. So if you find, that maybe you can expand the grant a little bit, that's a little hard though, because your project has already been approved. So, but there does have to be Rotary Club money in the grant. Yes.
And that could be the donations that have come in from your individual members, correct, Sharon?
As long as it's Rotary, yes.
Right.
But if you have other organizations, community organizations, that all of a sudden have stepped up and love the project and want to contribute, and you have what you need, then you would not get reimbursed for the grant.
But you could still expand it a little bit, Andrew, if you wanted to, as long as it's in the same realm. Just reach out to Sharon if there's something else that maybe you could use some money to make it a little bigger. You know, if you purchase 6 benches and you want to purchase 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
There's
We'll figure it out. I'm just,
Okay.
that was just my question.
okay.
So,
But I
and so my understanding from you and Sharon is, I understand. So we're good.
Right.
Okay.
But if you redo, you would have to do your financial page. Not using the new form, using the old form right now, so that we would know that that was, you know, if all of a sudden it changes the perspective of the grant. It's one thing if you add additional benches, but if all of a sudden you decide you're going to add a fountain, that wasn't in the original grant. And so we would have to make adjustments.
Anything else? Well,
Okay.
seeing none. Sharon, do you have anything you want to wrap up with?
Well, I just am very excited about working with all of you. I think it's going to be a great year. It's been, I so appreciate Jane and all the support she has given this past year and the patience of all the clubs as we work through some of the process so we could get you your money. So thank you for that. And I'd say let's go.
Yes, I'm one that I never run a meeting long just because I said it might be an hour. So your time is valuable. I
Yes.
thank you all for being here tonight, and we look forward to seeing those grant applications come in for the coming year, because it's a way in which we can continue to do great work in our communities. And that's what Rotary is all about: service above self and making a difference. And so let's get out there and serve to change lives. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Any
everybody.
questions? Sharon has everything
I'm
up,
here.
contact information, and she's a wealth of knowledge already. So thank you.
I'm learning too with you. But